The air was thick, not just with the sour smell of sweat and filth, but with the weight of hopelessness. Deep in the slave pens, Runa curled into herself in a dark corner, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. She tried to vanish, to become invisible. Her once radiant blue skin was now stained with dirt, her crimson hair tangled and lifeless. Runa was Kellian, a species admired across the stars for their beauty and elegance. But that beauty had been a curse. It was the reason she'd been stolen as a child, torn from her peaceful home and sold into slavery. For 2 decades, she'd been passed from one cruel master to the next, across planets where pleasure meant pain and kindness was a myth. Now she was on Horg Prime, a lawless, distant world where civilization's rules held no sway. Her new owner was Gar the Hurt, a notorious trafficker in flesh and forbidden things. Runa shivered. Rumors whispered, through the pens like smoke, rumors of what Gar did to those he kept closest. He was said to take special delight in breaking those who resisted. Footsteps echoed in the hallway, heavy, getting closer. Runa's breath caught. The cell door screeched open, and a hulking Gamoran guard snarled. "On your feet, filth, the master." "Wants you." Her legs shook as she stood, the chains on her ankles dragging across the floor. The guard's grip was rough, bruising as he pulled her into the corridor. Rows of cells blurred past, eyes peeking out, then quickly looking away. No one here wanted to see. They stopped before a grand door marked with the sigil of the Hurt. A metal panel slid open, revealing 2 beady eyes. A moment later, the door groaned open. Inside, the room pulsed with heat and sickly perfume. Alien nobles and traders lounged in luxury, draped in jewels and silks, whispering deals and laughing. Too loud. At the center of it all sat Gar, the Hurt. A revolting slug-like creature, sprawled across a throne of flesh and gold. His tiny arms rested on the shoulders of Twi'lek consorts who smiled without joy. "A new treasure," Gar boomed with glee. "Come closer." The guard shoved Runa forward. She stumbled, dropping to her knees before the dais, eyes down. Chains clinked as she trembled. Gar's fat finger lifted her chin. His orange eyes roamed her face with hungry interest. His tongue flicked across his lips. "Delicious," he purred. "You'll be a star in my harem. But not yet. First we break you." Runa didn't answer. She didn't cry. She just stared. Past him, a tall Duro stepped forward, his skin the color of bruised sky. Gar snapped his fingers. "Varlo, take her to the gardens. Begin her training. She must be ready for the eclipse ball." The Duros bowed low. "As you command, my lord." He yanked Runa to her feet and dragged her from the room. "Don't resist," he whispered into her ear, breath hot and sour. "It only makes it worse. They all give in." Runa didn't reply. But inside, beneath all the pain, something still burned. A small, quiet ember. Not fear. Not anger. Hope. They chained her to a post in a hidden garden soaked in sweet, suffocating scents. Varlo smiled thinly as he revealed a whip from his robes. "Let's begin." The whip hissed through the air. It bit into her skin like fire. She closed her eyes. She held on to that ember. They could hurt her. They could scar her. But they could not take her soul. Not unless she gave it to them. She would not. The eclipse ball arrived. A festival of madness that came once in 100 years. Gar spared no coin in showing off. His palace turned into a glittering carnival of lights, sounds, and bodies. Runa stood still on a high platform, a living ornament. Thin silks clung to her figure, and jewels sparkled on her wrists and neck. Her expression was blank, but inside, her mind remained free. Her training had been brutal, her body unmarked, but her spirit bruised. Still, she endured. The hall swirled with music and laughter. Aliens from 100 worlds danced and drank, and at the center, Gar laughed and stuffed his face, a mountain of slime and pride. Then the doors opened. A hush fell over the crowd. New visitors stepped in, tall, silent, powerful. Runa lifted her head, and for the first time in years, she felt something stir deep in her chest. A flicker, a shift. Change had come. The night sky above the palace glowed crimson, lit by the fires of war and the thunder of engines. Inside the great hall, laughter turned to confusion, then to screams. The eclipse ball had descended into chaos. Silken gowns were torn, goblets clattered to the floor, and nobles shoved one another to flee the encroaching storm. But Runa barely moved. She stood still, a lone figure among the scattering crowd, her mind elsewhere. For weeks now, she had been haunted by whispers of black-armored warriors who moved like phantoms and answered to no king, the Black Legion. Some called them ghosts, others said they were monsters. Runa didn't know what they truly were, only that the fear in people's eyes when they spoke of them was real. And now, they were here. Dark shapes burst through every archway like shadows come to life. They moved with military grace, cutting down resistance before it could rise. Not killing, just disabling. Every motion was deliberate, every strike precise. Stun pulses cracked, and armored boots struck the marble floors like the beat of a war drum. At their head walked a figure cloaked in mystery, his face hidden behind a sleek black helmet. His presence was colder than steel and twice as unyielding. His gaze, if it could be felt through the visor, swept the hall, stopping on one person, Runa. Her heart clenched. Time froze. Then, just as suddenly, he turned away. It made no sense. Until the real storm arrived from the sky. Thunder boomed as sleek black dropships descended outside the palace walls. Their hatches opened in unison, and more figures in matte armor poured out. This wasn't a raid, it was a takeover. From the lead ship stepped a man unlike the others. He wore no helmet. His silver-streaked hair shone beneath the moons, and his eyes, steel gray, took in everything at once. He carried himself with quiet strength, his every move deliberate, like he had done this 1,000 times. When he walked, even the ground seemed to listen. Runa's breath caught. Something about him felt familiar, though she'd never seen him before. He didn't just look at her, he saw her. And in that one glance, she felt something stir. A connection, fragile but real. He made his way toward her. The hall was still in chaos. Guards were being subdued. Greer was being dragged from his throne, shouting threats no one heard. But Runa saw only the man who now stood before her, offering not just a hand, but freedom. "I'm Sergeant Cade Decker, Terran Special Forces," he said, his voice smooth and calm, yet full of quiet power. "You're Runa, right?" She nodded, too stunned to speak. "You're safe now," he said simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world to say, as if it were true. When he removed her shackles, his fingers brushed against hers. It was just a moment, but it lit a fire in her chest that spread like a spark catching dry leaves. Runa had spent her whole life surviving, but now, for the first time, she felt seen. Not as a servant, not as a slave, as a person. A woman. And she saw him too, not just the warrior or the rescuer, but the man behind the armor. There was a kindness in Cade that his grim face couldn't hide. A sadness too, as if he'd seen too much. As he helped her down from the platform, a strange, powerful feeling took root in her chest. It wasn't just relief, it was hope. And maybe, just maybe, love. Not the kind from stories, but the kind that hits you like lightning in the middle of war. Sudden, sharp, true. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew this. She wasn't walking back into chains. She was walking toward something new, and whatever it was, it started with him. Inside and out, Runa looked at Cade and saw not just a man, but her future, strong, determined, and full of fierce pride. In that moment she knew she would follow him anywhere, into danger, into the unknown, because what they had was unshakable. As the Terran fleet buzzed with activity, medics healing the wounded, officers debriefing, technicians repairing, she stayed by Cade's side, amazed by the unity and purpose of the special forces. They weren't just soldiers, they were brothers. In arms, moving as one, driven by honor. Cade never left her, always there with gentle strength, and as the days passed, Runa found herself falling deeply in love. It wasn't just attraction, it was soul-deep, a connection built from shared pain and quiet understanding. Cade saw her for who she truly was, beyond the scars, and helped her heal. Slowly, she rediscovered laughter, hope, and the joy she thought lost forever. Their love grew, tender, strong, forged through hardship. When they finally arrived at the capital world, hand in hand, Runa felt truly home. With tearful joy, she whispered her love to Cade, and in return, he gave her a ring and a promise, asking her to marry him. Her yes came through tears and laughter, and as cheers erupted around them, their kiss sealed a future full of hope. Together, they would face whatever came, side by side, their love a light in a galaxy long starved of it, a love powerful enough to shake the stars themselves.